Hey, everybody. Hey, friends. Well, I hope everyone has had a Merry Christmas and a very happy holiday season. Hope you get to spend a lot of time with friends and family. And of course, if you're like minded, like I am, you know the real reason for the season. I hope that you've had some time to reflect on that as well. Welcome back to episode 9 of this show right here. Have I told you about this? This week, my mind has been bombarded with end of the year lists, right? I watch a lot of booktubers because I read a lot, and they're talking about their best books and worst books, and the video game world is picking the game of the year, and lots of debate about all that. And my movie YouTube shows that I'm watching, John Campions are talking about their favorite movies of the year and worst movies, what they're looking forward to in the new year. So my mind took me to and asked me a question actually, and said, "What are your favorite arcade and console games like of all time?" And that's really a pretty good place to start here. The top 10 arcade and console games that I think belong to me. So, with that said, I want you to picture this. There's the neon glow of the arcade and the clatter of the quarters and tokens just being slammed into the machines, and the hum of the CRT screens, and the chorus of all the digital music and sound effects that's blasting through the air. And for anyone like me who grew up in the late 80s and 90s, these were way more than just games. They were portals to adventure and friendship and also fierce competition. So once again, today on Have I Told You About This? I'm going to be counting down the top 10 arcade games and console games that really kind of defined my childhood more than anything. They shaped how I play, what my imagination looks like, and in many ways, even the future of gaming itself. This episode isn't really just a list. It's a journey through sights, sounds, and stories of the era. For each game I mention, we're going to dive deep as I always do. We'll talk about the graphics and the sound and the gameplay. If it's an arcade game, the cabinet art. If it's a console game, we'll talk about stories that I had while I played and just the emotional memories that make all of these titles legendary to me. And plus, stick around because at the end, I'll have a runners up. Three classics that just kind of missed the cut for me. So grab your tokens and settle in. Or your gamepad, because they could be console games as well. And let's relive the magic of arcades long gone and retro games that will live on, kind of, in my mind, pretty much forever. So we are going to start with number 10. GoldenEye 007. GoldenEye 007 was developed by Rare, and it was released in actually 1997 on the Nintendo 64. Um, why is this game on my list? Well, GoldenEye 007, it redefined multiplayer shooters, basically. It brought split screen action and stealth gameplay to our living rooms. Its missions, weapons, and its iconic maps. I mean, think about the facility and the complex and even the temple. They made it just a staple for multiplayer games. The 3D polygonal graphics, the atmospheric environments, and the realistic weapons actually just blew your mind. The soundtrack blends famous Bond themes with tense action music, and the gameplay is a mix of stealth, shooting, and objective based missions. It had some memorable features about it that, keep the game top of mind. There's four-player split screen that brought about a new term to our vernacular called screen cheating, which was looking over at your player's screen on their side to see where they're at, so that once you learn the map, you could go find them very easily. So we also created what were called cardboard dividers, where you can only see your screen and not theirs because we hated screen cheating. And of course, there were epic showdowns. The thrill of unlocking cheats such as paintball mode or even DK mode, and all the secret characters that were within the game. My friends and I would spend entire weekends playing GoldenEye. We would argue over screen cheating, of course, and celebrate every clutch victory. It was a game that made any kind of get-togethers that we had absolutely legendary. I mean, there was story after story of games where it felt like everyone just seemed to know where you were and you didn't know where they were. And some people were just better shooters with joysticks. When I grew up, you were playing Doom with your mouse and keyboard. So it took me a while to grasp the controller aspect of these games. So I wasn't the best early on, but I learned to adapt. Let's talk just briefly about tips, tricks, and Easter eggs. Well, you can unlock cheats by beating missions quickly. That's the key. A lot of people don't really understand that. The quicker you can beat a mission, the better the cheat that you'll end up getting. Also, if you're into playing multiplayer, you should use the character named Oddjob because he has an actual height advantage, right? His hitbox is a little bit larger, but also there are actual holes in it. So he's a little bit harder to hit because he's a larger character. So we had a house rule, no Oddjob. So make sure your friends allow it. And then the museum setup with 4 CRTs to prevent screen cheating is a modern tribute, right? I call it that because that's how many video game museums are showing this game off, and they have 4 CRTs set up in a square so that people can't screen cheat quite as easy. GoldenEye's box art was just amazing as well, with Bond aiming his pistol and explosions behind it. It just became iconic. I mean, this was a game that absolutely everyone wanted to play if you had a Nintendo 64. It made shooters social, strategic, and endlessly fun. So there it is. GoldenEye is number 10. Let's move on now to number 9, Zelda. Zelda, of course, is a Nintendo creation. Was actually released way back in 1986. The original Zelda was released on the NES. There was an arcade version of it in the Versus system. Later, the SNES, the Game Boy. I mean, pretty much every Nintendo console's had a version of Zelda. Zelda just defines the action adventure genre. It blends exploration and puzzles and combat in a sprawling world. Its open-ended design and memorable music made every quest feel unique. Top-down pixel art, colorful overworld and dungeons, and expressive sprites. Koji Kondo's soundtrack, especially the overworld theme, it's legendary. I know many people who have that still today on their playlists. Gameplay is about exploration. You find items and solve puzzles and defeat bosses and uncover secrets. I mean, goodness sakes, like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are games that just keep on giving. And the more you explore, the more you find. And there's so much more to explore in the newer games. Some of the memorable features I can remember about the earlier games, though, were just that sense of discovery. Bombing walls for hidden rooms, trading items, and unraveling the story. Oftentimes people get it mixed up and think Link is Zelda because it's called The Legend of Zelda. And you never play Zelda, you only play Link, which was kind of an oddity for this particular game. One of the few that ever happened to in the Nintendo series. Zelda's mix of main quests and side quests also set the template for decades. I can remember one Christmas mapping out the entire overworld on graph paper of the original Zelda, and then trading secrets and celebrating every new item that I found with friends as I shared my map with them. Zelda was the game that actually made me feel like an adventure and fall in love with action adventure games. As far as tips, tricks, and Easter eggs, you can use bombs to uncover tons of hidden passages in the game. And I know that's what caused me to play way longer than I should have because I tried to bomb literally everything. And then the second quest unlocks after you beat the game. It's harder enemies and new dungeon layouts. So few people actually even bother to beat games these days. It seems more about I want to play every game, but for about an hour, and then I want to move on to the next thing. But really, back then, when you were getting fewer games, in my childhood, you beat them. You tried the best you could to play them as long as you could and beat them. Also, you should always listen to the NPCs because they will give you cryptic hints of where to find things, how to do things. One of them even describes maybe you should throw the bomb against the wall and see what happens. In the arcades, the Versus System arcade cabinet featured Zelda's sword and shield with fantasy inspired art and gold bars and lovely shades of green all throughout the cabinet. So the main takeaway here for number 9, Zelda, is that Zelda made adventure personal and it made it mysterious and it made it endlessly rewarding. That's number 9, Zelda. All right, let's move on to number 8. Frogger. Love Frogger. Frogger was a Konami game released in 1981, back when we were riding our dinosaurs to the mall. This first appeared in arcade form, but later, of course, Atari, Coleco, and many, many more versions of the game were made. But to me, the best version will always be the one you're seeing here. It's the arcade original. Frogger pioneered the actual crossing game genre, blending reflexes, timing, and humor. You guided a frog across busy roads and rivers, and that seemed to be simple, but it was addictive and endlessly challenging. The farther you made it, the faster things got and the more the screen gets clogged up. Again, it was an arcade game. Its sole purpose was to grab those quarters out of your pocket, not let you play forever. They didn't make money if you played forever. This game had such colorful sprites for its day. The cars, the logs, the turtles, and of course, your iconic frog. The music is cheerful with playful sound effects for jumps and even splashes. Gameplay here is all about timing. You have to wait for gaps, hop quickly, and avoid hazards. As far as a memorable feature goes, the satisfaction of reaching those home slots were huge. Just getting there, especially in the later levels. But also the heartbreak of a mistimed jump. Or maybe you see those turtles that are diving in and out of the water. Maybe you inadvertently dove on them when they were up and you didn't realize they were going down. And now there's no log in front of you and there's nowhere to go. That is heartbreak. And finally, the humor of a frog that gets flattened by the traffic never gets old. Frogger was one of my first arcade obsessions. I'd spend hours trying to beat my own score, because back then it was all about the score. And you learned patterns and celebrated every successful crossing. As far as tips, tricks, and Easter eggs, again, just watch for patterns in the traffic and the logs. Again, timing is everything here. Some versions have hidden bonus points for reaching home quickly. That would be more in the console versions instead of like the arcade. But advanced users can back hop for extra challenge, right? And I'll let you try to find out what that means for yourself. See, even in old games, classic games, you can find new things. As far as the cabinet art, it had bright greens and yellows with a frog leaping across the marquee. The cabinet's playful art drew in players of all ages. Frogger was also very, very popular with the females in the day as well. So our takeaway here at number 8 for Frogger is it's the ultimate test of timing and reflexes. It's a crossing game. It's the original crossing game for absolutely all ages. Number 8, Frogger. Let's take a look at number 7. Sonic. Genesis does what Nintendo don't. Remember that? Sonic the Hedgehog was released from Sonic Team and Sega back in 1991. The platform was originally the Sega Genesis. It actually hit the arcade, and later Game Gear, Master System, and pretty much every console since. Why is it on this list? Well, Sonic was Sega's answer to Mario, except faster, much cooler mascot who defined the 16-bit era and made platformers about speed and style. Really, Sonic was totally built for one reason: to prove blast processing, how fast he can go. But if you actually watch people play Sonic, he doesn't move fast, but maybe 5 or 10% of the time. The other times you're like, stop, trying to jump, trying to go back and get coins. So it's kind of funny how we were sold on the speed, but the play wasn't nearly as frenetic as it seemed. So the game had bright, colorful levels. Remember Green Hill Zone and Marble Zone, and smooth parallax scrolling. It had incredibly fluid animation. Masato Nakamura's soundtrack was energetic and catchy. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, who can't hum that right up there? Gameplay is all about momentum. Run, jump, and spin, collect rings for protection. See, rings are your life in this game. Once you get hit, you drop them all, but they typically move slow enough that you can go get at least one more so that the next time you get hit, you don't die. But the more you get, the more points you'll have. The sense of speed, the loop-de-loops, and the springs, and of course, all the hidden paths in this game. It's just such a memorable game for all those reasons, right? Everybody just kind of tries to, the first time they play, you just run through and run to the end, and wow, this is all cool. And then you realize, how much of this game did I miss? And then if you go back and play really, really slow, you begin to find Easter eggs. You know, Sonic's attitude and his design made him an icon. This is one of the first games I can remember where if you just let him stand there and you don't move, he taps his foot and looks at you, it gives you a little bit of attitude, a little bit of tude back in the day. You know, I got my Genesis bundled with Sonic, and I know the first time that I hit a loop at full speed and the screen just seemed to blur by, I was hooked. Sonic was the game, when you played it, made you feel cool. You didn't feel cool when you were playing Mario Brothers. Mario Brothers was all about all the secrets, what could I find, and Sonic was about speed and feeling cool. As far as tips, tricks, and Easter eggs, if you collect 50 rings and you finish a level, you get to access a bonus stage. But you have to have 50 rings or more, and a lot of people don't realize that. Like, well, I got to the end of this very quickly. Why did I not get the bonus stages? Remember, 50 rings are a part of it. There's also a hidden debug mode. If you can press a specific button combo on the title screen, you'll be taken to a debug mode. Have fun finding that. Also, look for secret paths and shortcuts in every zone because every zone has multiple ones for you to find. Now again, this was released in the arcade, and the cabinet art had Sonic dashing across the marquee with rings flying behind him, with blue and gold and red. Of course, the Genesis box art is equally iconic. So why is Sonic on the list? Sonic made platformers fast, stylish, and, for the first time in a long time with the game, endlessly replayable. Endlessly. Alright, that's number 7 on Sonic. Let's move on to number 6. Mortal Kombat 2. This was developed by Midway in 1993 for the arcade, using the same digitized sprites as the first one, although about twice as large, as you can see. This game, of course, was later released on the SNES, the Genesis, and again, about every single console that's ever lived. MK2 pushed boundaries, though, with the digitized graphics here. And, of course, the brutal fatalities. The first game, yeah, had fatalities, and a couple of them were brutal. This one takes it to a whole new level. And total controversial violence. It sparked debates, even Senate hearings. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but the reason that we have the ESRB, the rating system, is because of this game right here, Mortal Kombat 2. The realistic character sprites, gory effects, and the atmospheric backgrounds like Outworld, or here the acid pits or the living forests. Man, like you could sit and watch this game and have just as much fun as playing it. The sound design too, with the crunchy hits and all the screams, and of course the iconic voice clips. Finish him. Fatality amplified the intensity. Gameplay's tight too. Special moves, combos, and secret fatalities are all included in this crispy package. This is a game for the ages. There are so much here to find that you just weren't finding in games like Street Fighter, right? The thrill and the shock of executing a fatality, it made you a king in the arcades if you could do those. And then the secret characters, let's talk about them. Smoke, Jade, and Noob Saibot, which was the developers Boone and Tobias, their names spelled backwards, and the playground rumors about all the hidden moves. How many times did somebody come up and tell you they found a specific move or code for a cheat or something in the game that just was never there? I actually remember going to the arcade to play specifically Mortal Kombat 2. And I was one of the lucky few where my parents didn't follow me to the arcade. They didn't care. They dropped me off and went elsewhere. So I could see all the blood and gore and everything I wanted to. While many of my friends' parents weren't quite as lenient as mine were. So the excitement of discovering a new fatality or unlocking a secret character for me was unmatched in any other game. Let's talk a little bit about tips and tricks and Easter eggs. Each character, I don't know if you know, has multiple fatalities. Experiment with those button combos. You will find them. Look for hidden fights. If you beat the game without losing a round at all, you get to face Smoke. And then there's the toasty guy who pops up for special uppercuts. Did you know that's when he shows up? Many people think it's, I have to win so many, or I have to do this when the moon is on the screen. No, you just need special uppercuts to do it. Now, the cabinet art for Mortal Kombat 2 was so much better than MK1. It was dark, moody art with a dragon logo and all the fierce fighters. The Marquis' fiery colors and bold type set the tone for the intense battles that were to come. So it's pretty easy to see why Mortal Kombat's at number 6. Mortal Kombat 2, I should say. It's a game that made fighting controversial, competitive, but most importantly, unforgettable. It's a game today where the generation today can simply just go chat GPT or Google and say, show me all the moves for the characters, and it's there for them to take pictures of on their phone, and then when they're playing the game, they can look at it. Back in my day, you button mashed till you found everything. You tried everything you could to find the secrets and the hidden things and the hidden characters. So that's what made this game a lot of fun back then, probably more so even than today. And of course, the modern Mortal Kombat games are just stunning, just absolutely stunning. And, there was an era, particularly the PlayStation 2 era, where the Mortal Kombat games like beefed up in size. There were whole RPG modes. There were kart racing modes. There were all kinds of, there was even like a Puyo Puyo style game of Mortal Kombat that you could play in those versions of the game. And then it got into total realistic graphics that we're seeing today in like MK1. So it's amazing the longevity that Mortal Kombat has had, but I have to go back to when I first saw Mortal Kombat 2, and that's why it makes my top 10 list here at number 6. All right, let's move on to number 5. You can hum this song along with me too. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Of course, we all know Turtles. Who hasn't played at least one Turtle game? This was manufactured by Konami back in like 1989. Of course, this was one of the 4-player cabinets because, well, we're not making enough money with single player, and even 2 isn't enough. And we learned from Gauntlet, let's put 4 of these puppies on here and let's earn as much money as we can. Of course, there were 4 turtles, so it made it easy to do that. This game actually did come out in arcades first, but later the NES, the SNES, and the Genesis, and once again, just about every console since then has access to these games. So, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, both games, the original and Turtles in Time, brought co-op beat-em-up action to the masses. It let friends team up as their favorite turtles to battle Shredder and his evil Foot Clan. Its vibrant graphics and catchy music and teamwork mechanics made it a social sensation. Man, so many stories on this game. The graphics and the sound and the gameplay just continually brought you back. It didn't matter what you went to the arcade to play or what was new. You were going to play a game of Turtles before you left. Large, colorful sprites and smooth animations, and even the detailed backgrounds like the New York City streets or the sewers, or worse yet, the Technodrome. And the soundtrack featured energetic tunes and voice clips. Cowabunga! It's pizza time! Gameplay's fast and furious. You have punch, kick, dodge, and you can use power-ups. And of course, pizza for health. What else would it have been? Some of the memorable features, again, that 4-player co-op, crowding around that cabinet and strategizing and celebrating victories together. The very first time I ever actually beat this game was with 4 players. I never ever beat it with any less than 4 players. The humor and personality of the turtles are actually shown through in every move as well. Each turtle was unique and distinct, using their own particular weapon of choice. Some, like Donatello, would give you a little bit longer reach than others as well. You know, my friends and I would pool up quarters to play as all 4 of the turtles. So what we would do is when you died as your turtle, you moved on to the next. That seemed to make it a little bit more fair and gave everyone a chance to play their favorite turtle. And again, we would shout out moves and laugh at over-the-top bosses. You know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was more than just a game. It was almost like a bonding experience in the arcade. Well, let's talk about some real quickly tips, tricks, and Easter eggs. You want to use Donatello's long reach to attack from a distance. That helps a lot when you're getting close to the little robots that spin their arms out and things like that. You want to be farther away from them than up closer. You'll get electrocuted. Again, you want to grab the pizza power-ups, but you want to do that strategically. You should try to save them for the boss fights or when you really need it. Or particularly, if your friends need it, let them have it. Don't take it when you don't need it. Also, you should watch for hidden paths and bonus items in every level. Did you know those were there? Now you do. As far as the cabinet art goes, it was a riot of color. Turtles and action poses and cityscapes and comic-inspired graphics all over the marquee, and especially good old April O'Neil there in her yellow and with red hair. The marquee featured all 4 turtles, weapons drawn, and ready for battle. So, why is it at number 5? Well, TMNT made arcades a social, fun, and unforgettable place. And it made it a place where you knew you could go to not only play the coolest games, but you actually got to play them with your friends. And again, any game you can play with your friends is just a better game. That's number 5, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Number 4 is an oldie, but oh my gosh, a goodie. Galaga. Galaga was made by Namco in 1981. It started in the arcades, later to the NES. Yes, and yes, the Genesis, even Atari had it, the 2600, everything's had Galaga. So why is it here? Well, it's the king of space shooters, and it combines simple controls with deep strategy and escalating challenge. You see, Galaxian came first, and it was just shoot all the the ships. It was Space Invaders, but the Space Invaders could move, right? And your ship could move around much quicker and easier, and you did not have the barriers between you and the aliens. But here at Galaga, you had the dual ship mechanic, where the top ship, the one there that's blue, could come down and shoot a ray that would pull your ship up. Then, if you happen to shoot your ship, you lost it. But if you shoot the alien holding the ship, now you get two ships to shoot, and that makes all the difference, especially in the bonus stages. That's really what set Galaga apart. But it had colorful alien sprites, smooth animations, and hypnotic attack formations. The sound effects were to kill for. Laser blasts, the enemy dives, that challenge stage music. You can hum that too, it's iconic. Gameplay was always fast-paced, dodging, shooting, and mastering the dual ship power-up. Man, once you had that dual ship, you did not want to lose. The thrill of letting your ship be captured, and then the tension as you tried to rescue it for double firepower, hardly unmatched by any other game. The competitive chase for high scores, and the legendary no enemy fire trick. What is that? But remember, you heard it here first. I had a friend who taught me that dual ship strategy, and we'd compete for the highest scores at the local arcade. The challenge stages, though, were our favorite. We oftentimes realized we were so close in score, we were just kind of going back and forth. I would win, he would win, I would win, he would win. So instead, we went back to the challenging stages, and it was who could get the most perfects was considered the champ. So even here, you can make your own games within games. You had to hit every enemy in the challenge stage for the perfect bonus, which was a badge of honor at the time. Are there tips, tricks, and Easter eggs here? Well, let a boss Galaga capture your ship and then rescue it for dual fire. That's the hugest thing. On the early stages, if you leave 2 bugs in the bottom left to stop enemy fire for the rest of the game. Bet you didn't know that one either. And there's a test mode. If you enter a joystick sequence, you will see a hidden 1981 Namco Limited message. Good luck finding that one. But remember, you heard about it here first. The cabinet art here was a starfighter battling waves of aliens with bold yellows and blues and greens. The Marque's sci-fi topology and cosmic backgrounds set the mood. It wasn't the coolest marquee on any game, but it sure made you smile every time you saw it. So once again, why is Galaga at number 4? Again, this game is the ultimate test of reflexes, tenseness, and strategy. This is a space shooter that is never, ever going to get old. I own the Miss Pac-Man Galaga anniversary cabinet, and it's so much fun to be able to play Miss Pac-Man and Galaga all in the same machine. Really makes me pine for the days of going back to the arcade and playing this one. But something funny is even my local Dave & Buster's still has Galaga. Alright, that's number 4. Let's move on to number 3. Super Mario Brothers. This was developed by Nintendo's R&D Team 4. It was released in 1985 and 86. 85 on the NES and an 86 in the Arcade Versus system. And yes, it's been on every Nintendo platform since then. And every emulator since then as well. But to me, the best version will always be the original that I played was on the NES. But although, if you go back to the Super Mario All-Stars version, you love to see the graphics and, just better graphics all the way around. So why is this here? Of course, this almost goes without saying. This is the game that saved the industry after the 1983 crash. And it defined platformers, what a platformer would be, forever. It had precise controls. It had imaginative worlds. And one of the first games with hidden secrets galore that made every playthrough an adventure. You would literally jump to your death thinking there might be something down there hidden. Bright, colorful sprites and smooth scrolling, the iconic backgrounds of the Mushroom Kingdom and the underground caves and even the castles. Once again, here's Koji Kondo and another soundtrack that's a banger from him, especially the overworld theme. It's instantly recognizable, this game. You could just hear the music and know, oh, they've got Super Mario Brothers. Gameplay is tight. There's running, jumping, and power-ups with the super mushrooms and fire flowers, and even the Starman. And of course, those secret warp zones. This game has a sense of discovery like no other before it. Finding hidden blocks where you would just jump once and all of a sudden, ba-ding, and you're like, there was no block there. Warping to new worlds through the warp world cheats and things. Pretty crazy for its time, wasn't it? And the infamous minus world glitch. Mario's transformation from plumber to hero became a cultural touchstone right here in this game. I can remember getting my NES for Christmas. And of course, I got the one with Super Mario Brothers packed in. I immediately called my best friend. I said, well, our weekend's gone. And he came over and we spent hours and hours and hours trying to beat Bowser. And we would trade some tips back and forth and, of course, celebrate every new world that we got to. And, of course, as we played, we got out some paper and a pencil and wrote down some fake tricks that we would tell everybody at school that we found while we played it, because we were sure nobody else was getting this game when it turned out most everyone got the game. The game's secrets just keep coming back over and over and over again. And speaking of secrets, did you know if you hold A on the title screen, you can continue from the world you just died in? Now, I know that's not the deepest hidden secret, but I've talked to a lot of people who didn't know it. The minus world glitch is when you enter warp zones in 1 and 2 in a specific way, you can access a never-ending underwater level. And of course, there's one-up tricks. You can bounce on a shell repeatedly for infinite lives. I loved that trick when I found it, by accident. In the arcade, the Versus Super Mario Bros. Arcade cabinet featured Mario leaping across platforms with bold reds and blues. The marquee's stylized logo and character art drew players in, but at this time in the arcades, it wasn't about the marquees being flashy or anything, so this one, pretty bland, but yet it was the music that let you know what was in that machine before you even got there. Of course, the main takeaway here is Super Mario Brothers is the blueprint for every platformer that's came after. And it's truly the heart of many kids' childhood gaming. That's why Super Mario Brothers is at number 3. All right. Number 2, and believe it or not, we've already said this game's name. Super Street Fighter 2. Capcom was the developer in 1991. Came to the arcade first in the CPS-1 hardware. Later on the SNES, the Genesis, and again, everything since then has pretty much had this. But this was the edition that I'm really showing you here with the extra fighters. And this was the game that, to me, Super Street Fighter 2 was good. Really, really, really good. As far as a fighting game goes, it's just pure fighting, just getting to know the things. No, there's no, fatalities or anything here, no, but the myriad of moves and blocks. And I mean, this is a fighting game player's fighting game. And the addition of the 4 extra characters, the new challengers, Fei Long, Cammy, DJ, and T-Hawk, just put the cherry on the top of this sundae. Street Fighter 2 didn't just revive arcades. It launched the fighting game boom, and it defined competitive gaming for generations. It had a 6-button control scheme, combo systems out the wazoo, and a diverse cast that set new standards. See, which character you chose mattered because they all played significantly different. Well, you might say Ken and Ryu are kind of the same. I know a lot of people argue that, but there's just enough difference, I think, to make them different. The game's accidental discovery of combos became a genre defining mechanic. And again, its global roster Ryu, Chun Li, Guile, Blanca, and so many more made every player feel represented. This game had vibrant sprite art, and the animations, you could just watch this game be played and see something new constantly. And iconic backgrounds from Chun Li's bustling marketplace to Guile's airbase and even E Honda's like locker room area where the water splashed out of the pools and things that were there. It created a sense of place, places you wanted to go. And the music. Think back to Guile's theme. It became legendary. The gameplay was deep. Special moves required precise joystick inputs, and mastering the combos separated casuals from champions. Friends, you could button mash, particularly at the stage where you were playing other new people, but when somebody really began to learn the moves, your button mashing days were over. Memorable features in the game were, well, the competitive spirit. You can remember lining up quarters and saying winner stays on. Playground debates over the best characters and the thrill of executing a perfect Hadouken. I mean, who doesn't love Hadouken? You can just be in normal conversation with somebody. No matter what you're talking about. How was that book? Oh man, the way that they did this thing was Hadouken. Yeah, it works everywhere. It's a cultural word. It's in the vernacular. And Chun Li's inclusion as a strong female fighter was groundbreaking for its time. You try to think back to before Chun Li to any like awesome, strong woman fighter in any video game, and you're going to come up empty. You know, one of the stories that just one I have hundreds of stories about Street Fighter 2, but I remember being getting pretty good with Fei Long, particularly the hi, the three moves where you do the same the half circle punch, half circle punch, half circle punch, and he would three hits in a row, and after that, and then do the flaming kick, and you were done. I mean, I pretty much knew what I was doing. But I remember walking in one day, and there was some little kid there, and I was older at that time in my 20s, and I thought, well, all right, I don't want to be too harsh on the kid, so basically, I took Fei Long, but I said I'll let the kid win. So he had already won the other game because once you put in your quarters as they were playing, then a new challenger appears, and kid looked over at me and he said, "Who you taking?" And I said, "Oh, I'm gonna take Fei Long." And he said, "I'm gonna play and I'm gonna turn around. I'm not even gonna look at the screen and I'm gonna beat you." And I was like, I can't wait for this. This is going to be the beating of a lifetime that this little smart aleck needs badly. And see, what I didn't realize, what I really didn't realize and pay much attention to was who he had chosen. And believe it or not, he had Blanca. And I thought I beat Blanca a million times with Fei Long. Like nothing. I just walked all over him. So when round one fight happened, he instantly went into the electricity, and I moved in for the kill like I shouldn't have done. I was electrified. The minute he heard I was electrified, it was constant throws and then biting my head, throws, biting my head, throws, biting my head. He won 2 rounds flawlessly, never even looking at the screen. And that was probably the last time I played the arcade game, but I did buy it for consoles, and of course, I've stayed with the game ever since. As far as tips, tricks, and Easter eggs go, you should master that quarter circle and charge inputs for special moves. Charge like Guile, charge characters. A lot of people don't like them. They are fantastic when you really get that charge timing down. Each character has hidden moves too. Try holding buttons for alternate attacks, and don't always use your strongest attack either. You'd be surprised what combos can do with the light and medium attacks. And obviously, the smashing bonus stage is was a fan favorite forever in the single player version. The cabinet art here was bold and comic inspired, with the full roster in a dynamic pose. This was one of the first side arts on a machine I wished I could have the art for at home. And later on, I got it. And the marquee's electric colors and stylized logo just absolutely screamed action. So, the main takeaway here is Street Fighter 2 made arcades more than social. It made them friendly, competitive, and again, endlessly replayable. It's the reason why the fighting genre owned the arcade for so many years. And then, not knockoff, but fighting game after fighting game, Killer Instinct and the Mortal Kombats and Fatal Furies and all of these games and everyone playing them, they owe it to Street Fighter. I mean, Street Fighter has to be at number 2 on my list. It came as close as you could get to number 1 without actually being number 1. Well, and that's because of what actually is number 1 on my list. Now, a lot of people aren't going to agree with this. They're going to think, "What? This is nothing. Why in the world would you choose Miss Pac-Man?" Look, let's start at the very top. Miss Pac-Man isn't just a sequel. It's the ultimate evolution of the maze game, and arguably the most beloved arcade title of all time, bar none. The manufacturer was a company called General Computer Corporation, GCC, and it was published by Midway back in 1982. It hit the arcades, and now again, it's been on everything since then. I think you can probably even play it on your toaster screen at this point, if your toaster has a screen. Miss Pac-Man's journey is legendary. How this game got to be made and the sequels and stuff, it's as legendary as the gameplay. It was born from a hack called Crazy Otto by MIT students that worked at GCC. She was transformed into an official sequel by Midway, but without Namco's initial blessing. This backstory is a tale of legal drama and innovation and a bit of bluffing, as GCC convinced Midway to license their mod as a full-fledged sequel to the original. But what truly sets Miss Pac-Man apart is the gameplay refinement. You see, Pac-Man had a single maze, and by the way, predictable ghost movement. There's a spot on Pac-Man, and if you know it, you can sit there and walk away from the machine, and you can come back 5 days later. You'll still be there. You won't be dead. It's a place the ghosts never go when Pac-Man is there. Miss Pac-Man, though, introduced 4 distinct mazes with semi-randomized ghost movement and bouncing fruit. The fruit didn't just stay where it was. These changes made the game way more dynamic, less reliant on memorization, and infinitely replayable. This was the ultimate Twitch game, and your reflexes will determine your score. Hardcore players and casual fans alike, especially the female crowd, loved Miss Pac-Man and found new challenges and surprises at every play. Miss Pac-Man also broke ground as the first female video game protagonist to reach mainstream popularity, and again appealed to a way broader audience and cementing her place as a feminist icon in gaming. As far as the graphics, as you can see, Miss Pac-Man's visuals are a masterclass in 8-bit charm. The 4 mazes, pink, blue, brown, and dark blue, alternate as you progress, each with solid wall colors for clarity. The sprites are crisp. Miss Pac-Man is sporting her iconic red bow and even lipstick. The ghosts, Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Sue, not Clyde, are vibrant and expressive, and their movement patterns are so unpredictable. They will change in a heartbeat. Of course, there's the sound. The game soundscape is instantly recognizable. From the also cheerful waka 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 of pellet punching to the escalating intermission tunes, Miss Pac Man's audio is both playful and urgent. The new sound effects for dying, which is a dramatic swoon and even a spin, and the higher pitched fruit collection add layers of personality to the game, especially the cutscenes. Not only that, but the cutscenes are a spoiler for future games. Miss Pac Man is the epitome of easy to learn, hard to master gameplay design. The controls were the same simple controls as Pac Man, a four-way joystick, but the challenge ramps up quickly. The Ghost AI is random, preventing pattern exploitation, and it demands real time strategy. The addition of the bouncing fruit and multiple warp tunnels on stages and variable maze layouts keeps every session fresh. Power pellets offer brief windows of ghost eating glory, but their duration shortens as the levels progress. Sometimes the ghosts don't even turn blue when you eat the power pellets. Those intermission screens were amazing, weren't they? Miss Pac Man's animated cutscenes, they tell a charming love story. First meeting Pac Man, and then falling in love, and then welcoming baby Pac Man via the stork. Those intermissions were groundbreaking for the time, and they gave the player a break from the action. That's really why they were put there. And they add emotional beats and narrative to just an otherwise abstract game. Also, the bouncing fruit doesn't get enough flowers. Unlike Pac Man's static fruit, that Miss Pac Man's bonus items bounce around the maze required timing and risk to collect. That feeling of, should I go for that fruit or not? Should I go for it? I don't know. It seems far away, but boy, you want those points. It just adds excitement and unpredictability. For many, Miss Pac Man was the first game that felt kind of truly alive. The character's personality and the evolving, changing mazes and the social aspect of chasing the high scores, it made her a fixture at arcades, pizza parlors, bowling alleys, and later on home consoles. She was a game anyone and everyone could play and has played and loves to play, from kids, parents, and even grandparents. My personal story, I remember the very first time I played Miss Pac Man, and it was actually at a roller skating rink. Cabinet stood out. It was bright pink and blue with Miss Pac Man winking from the marquee. I was there with a friend, and I was competing for the high score, and we kind of traded tips on ghost avoidance, thinking we knew way more than we did, right? Figuring that this must have been like Pac Man, and there had to be a pattern. But the thing about it was, we knew the true tip that you could have to help yourself or anyone else score the highest was get those fruit, because that's where the big points were. The thrill of clearing out each new maze and the heartbeat of each close call as you rounded around a corner, and the joy of seeing those intermission screens, man, those moments are etched in my memory forever. Miss Pac Man wasn't just a game, she was a rite of passage. I still have a machine in my arcade basement to this day, and there's hardly a day goes by I at least don't fire it up and play a game. As far as tips, tricks, and Easter eggs, there's something called the Power Pellet Tune Trick. If you eat all four power pellets, but you have to do it in quick succession, the music in the game climbs higher and higher in pitch. It's kind of a quirky musical Easter egg, because basically what you've done is you've taken all of your safety in the game away, and now every dot that's left, you're going to have to eat on your own. And there's an original Pac-Man mode. On certain of these anniversary cabinets that I spoke of, whether it's Miss Pac-Man and Galaga, you can enter a secret joystick sequence. And I'm going to give you this sequence, because if this is my number one, you need to know the trick. You go up, 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 and then down. So up, 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 down, and then down, down and left. Okay, so down and roll to the left, and then right, left. And that unlocks the original Pac-Man game. You can play it. People say, well, why do I want to play the original? I know, but hey, look, if you're in the arcade and you know something somebody else doesn't know, you're considered a king. And then the fruit patterns. If you learn the fruit's bounce path for each maze, you can actually time your moves and it can net you hundreds of thousands of bonus points. The fruits are not randomized. Know that. You know, Miss Pac Man's cabinet is a work of pop art. It features Miss Pac Man in her signature bow and surrounded by ghosts and fruit, rendered in bold, saturated colors. The side art is uniquely striking, dynamic lines and playful typography, and a sense of motion that draws players in. That cabinet art told you this was going to be a fast playing game, and it wasn't joking around. Even the cocktail version with its glass tabletop was a staple in many like pizza places and diners, offering a more social, face-to-face experience. So, Miss Pac-Man's legacy, like I mentioned, is complicated. Her origins actually started as a hack, and that led to decades of legal disputes over the royalties and character rights. Midway, the original developers GCC and Namco, and later At Games all tangled over the ownership, resulting in Miss Pac-Man's removal from many modern Pac-Man collections, and her replacement by Pac-Mom in recent re-releases. Despite these challenges, though, Miss Pac-Man's impact endures. Her cabinets are prized by collectors, and her story is a testament to the creativity and the chaos of the arcade era. Once again, I've said this about many games, but Miss Pac-Man is more than a game. She's a symbol of innovation, inclusivity, and enduring fun. Her blend of technical brilliance and emotional storytelling through awesome cutscenes makes her the definitive childhood arcade experience. Now, that's all of my games. Okay. But there are going to be some that are called runners up. I've got games that are go-to games still and love to play them. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about them. I'm not going to show you any screens or anything. You go find these on your own through your own emulators or even your arcades. If you happen to live near every show, I want to try to push Galloping Ghost Arcade in Brookfield, Illinois, run by the most awesome person on the planet that has anything to do with arcades, Doc Mac. I'm not sure how much it was. Last time I was there, it might have been $25 for the day. No tokens, quarters needed. Every game's free after that. You can come and go as you wish. And they even have pinball that you can go to. And they have every arcade. There's over 1,000 plus games there, like maybe 1,100 and some even. Every Monday, if you search YouTube for the Galloping Ghost Arcade, Doc Mac will put yet another new arcade game on the floor. It is an amazing place to see. It's a couple city blocks long, and they're even going into multiple buildings, and they're probably going to go upstairs before too long. Doc is just hell-bent on putting every arcade game he can find into his arcade, and God bless him. It's a place to be, and I love it. All right, so let's talk about 3 classics that just missed the top 10. The first one is called Amidar, and it was released in 1981 by Konami. Amidar is a blend of maze and coloring mechanics. It kind of mixes elements of Pac-Man and the old game Qix. 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 Qix was a game where you were just a little dot and you hit the button as you move the joystick and it left a line behind you. And your whole thing was, I need to make these shapes and close them off, and then they would color in. And I needed to color in a certain percentage of the screen. Well, you do that here in Amidar as well. But also, as you go around Amidar, you're picking up other things on the screen, much like Pac-Man. You move around a grid and you're coloring in rectangles by tracing their edges while avoiding 2 types of enemies. Amidars were free roaming, they could go anywhere, and tracers, which just went around the border. Odd-numbered levels featured a gorilla collecting coconuts, and even-numbered levels were a paint roller that had limited range. There was a jump button that lets you make enemies leap, not you. Right? All of the enemies would jump when you hit the button, so you could just go up underneath them and you would be safe. You could use that 3 times per stage. If you colored in all 4 of the corner rectangles, it was like a power pellet, and then you could go and run over the things that were on the screen chasing you and get extra score. And the game's scoring system rewarded strategic play. Filling in the boxes and knocking out enemies escalated your points incredibly high. Amidar had quirky mechanics and colorful art, and it's a cult favorite. The challenge of mastering both movement and coloring created a sense of accomplishment. So why didn't it make my top 10? Well, it's innovative, but Amidar lacked broad cultural impact of Pac-Man or Frogger or especially Miss Pac-Man. Its complexity made it just a little less accessible to casual players, but it certainly remains a beloved niche classic to this day. My second almost made the top 10 was Donkey Kong Jr., 1982. Why not Donkey Kong? I've always loved Donkey Kong Jr. more. Not sure why. Donkey Kong's a classic. I still play it all the time. But I think I was a little older when Donkey Kong Jr. came out, and I don't know, it was just something that hits me more nostalgia. Nostalgic, I should say, with Donkey Kong Jr. Donkey Kong Jr. was released in 1982 by that Nintendo R&D Team 1. Donkey Kong Jr. flips the script. This time Mario's the villain, and you play as Donkey Kong's son, Jr., and you're rescuing your father from captivity. The game features 4 stages. You're climbing vines, dodging snapjaws and nitpickers, and unlocking chains to free Donkey Kong. The dual vine climbing mechanic was very unique for the time. You could hold 2 vines to climb faster, and you could slide down 1 to descend faster. Fruit can also be dropped on enemies' heads for bonus points. And then again, there was this whole narrative twist. You got to play as the hero's child. That was novel for the time. It was unlike any other game you'd played. And not only that, but here Mario was the villain. You see, Donkey Kong Jr. was a staple in arcades and early home consoles. Its challenging platforming and role reversal makes it a memorable game. So, Brad, why didn't it make the top 10? Well, again, it was influential to me, but it was just overshadowed by its predecessor, Donkey Kong, and by Mario's later adventures like Super Mario Bros. Its difficulty curve was steep, limiting its mass appeal. Some people said it also had floaty controls that were hard to master. So that's really why it didn't make it. But boy, it was very close to making it. And my final almost made it is a little game called Tron, made in 1982 by Bally Midway. Tron actually was a series of mini games, right? It's a multi-game minigame experience, and it was heavily, obviously, inspired by the Disney film. Players got to tackle 4 sub-games: the I/O Tower, where you avoided grid bugs; the NPC Cone, where you broke through shields; the Light Cycle, which was a snake-like combat game; and then Battle Tanks, which was 2 tanks in a maze shooting each other. But I'm going to tell you that what made this game stand out was the game itself, the machine. It was neon colors, and the joystick was like a neon purple glowing and even lighted, and like it would strobe. That when you saw that machine, you're like, I got to go play. I don't even care what game it is. And again, it had that 4 distinct gameplay modes in one cabinet, so you never got tired of playing any of the games. And then there were the light cycles that introduced competitive snake mechanics, and the faster you moved and the faster your light cycle moved on the screen, that could cause you to make some bad moves, especially in longer matches. But it was always fun and competitive game. You always felt like you could make it to the end. Most players I saw did finish at least all 4 games once. And of course, the cabinet did feature a rotary dial, as well as the joystick and trigger, and that added tactile variety. But it was that neon cabinet, its movie tie-in, and its variety that made it stand out and become a quarter muncher. But why didn't it make the top 10? Well, it did have complexity, and it did rely on the film's limited like love and for the movie. Not a lot of people went to see Tron, by the way. So, unfortunately, this game kind of died on the vine because the movie wasn't as popular as everyone thought it would. It was definitely a technical marvel, and it didn't achieve the universal appeal of some of the simpler arcade classics. So, with that, the top 10 arcades and runners up aren't just relics, they're living legends, and they're inspiring new generations of players and developers and even storytellers. Their influence can be seen in modern games and in pop culture, even the way we connect with each other to this day. So the next time you hear Waka Waka of Miss Pac-Man, or that punchy dun 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 of Street Fighter 2, or even the cheerful chip tunes of Mario. Maybe you're at Universal Studios in the world of Nintendo and you hear all that music. Remember, you're not just playing a game, you're reliving a piece of your childhood and mine, a piece that'll never fade. That's my top 10. I want to thank you for joining me here on Have I Told You About This? The top 10 arcade and console games that defined my childhood. As always, I thank you for your time. If you've enjoyed this episode, won't you please hit like and subscribe? That just helps the channel get found. That's all. It's never going to help financially because I'm not making this a financial thing. I do this because I love it. I love talking to you each and every week. I love hearing your comments back and seeing the people like and dislike. Hey, look, I'm not opposed to dislike if you don't like it, but I always just ask if you don't, tell me why. Right? I'd love to get better at what I do. This is a passion project. It always will be, and I just want it to grow and I want to create a whole community of people over the years as we go that enjoys sharing what's on their mind this week. So hit me up in the comments if you would. Tell me what games defined your childhood. Right? They might even be, oh, when I go to Dave and Buster's, I like playing the Angry Birds coin pusher. I get that. I go play that too all the time. Look what I have right here. Dave and Buster's. I go to Dave and Buster's constantly. You know, for new generations, it's different experiences. I totally get that. But you should always be looking for things like game compilations that you can pick up on your Switch or your PlayStation or your Xbox of some of these older arcade games. Take a game of Robotron, a dual stick shooter, or a game of Root Beer Tapper, right? Or one of my own favorites and one of my favorite bands when I was growing up, the Journey arcade game. The very first arcade game ever made by and about a band, right? And uses digitized pictures of their faces. And there's a story behind that. That game actually had a camera on it when it first started. But maybe you might imagine why they took the camera out. Well, that's a story for another day. Speaking of another day, thank you so much for your time today. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. And I'll see you right back here next week on Have I Told You About This, where my mind will take me to new places, and I'll look forward to sharing it with you. God bless and have a great week.